Hello and welcome once again to our kitchen table. I'm sitting here with my wife, your therapist, and we're going to be talking about productivity today. It's something that you've told me you talk to your clients a lot about, like executive dysfunction and neurodiversity, how we can stay productive and efficient. And it's something that I think a lot of people give a lot of thought to, like, how can I get more things done, or why am I not able to get these tasks done that are like sitting on my to-do list that I'm just stressing about. They create, it's 5 minutes of work, but it's given me hours of stress, sorts of thing. I've been a victim of that.
Good news. The task I've put off for 3 weeks took me 10 minutes.
Exactly. So we're going to give you some practical tips about how to tackle some of those things and how to live a more organized life, and maybe ways to reevaluate what productivity means and what organization means, and, maybe being kinder to yourself.
Yeah, maybe some of that.
More importantly, though, I was just in the restroom putting my face on, freshening up for the episode.
As one does.
As one does. And some water had dripped out of the shower curtain onto the floor into the shape of a heart.
Aw, that's so cute.
Yeah. So I'm not going to try to divine any sort of higher meaning from that. It just kind of tickled me, and I thought I would say it.
Well, that's
this
very
just
cute.
happened. I just walked in from this.
Our shower clearly loves us.
So, as always, my name is Price, and I married your therapist.
I'm Ash, and I'm your therapist. Please keep in mind that even though this is a podcast about therapy and mental health, it's not the same thing as or a replacement for therapy.
Perfect. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, we were talking about a couple different levels of productivity, or levels of tasks that we can have a productivity discussion around. But before we dive into like specific examples and specific help that would mirror kind of what you've told me you tell your clients, share some thoughts with us about productivity overall.
It's a lie.
It's a lie?
Yeah. There's so much pressure to be productive. And that's why at the beginning, as you're talking, because clients come in with a lot of pressure to be productive. And by 25, 30, 35, their life is supposed to look a certain way, and they're supposed to do a certain number of things. But here they are at 30-something years old, and they can't consistently get the dishes done, or they're struggling with an issue with their car, or they're not feeling able to just like manage their life in general. And the first thing we're examining is, well, where did you get the idea that you should be doing all of these things and that your life should look a certain way? Because your life is meant to be experienced. You're meant to exist, not to be productive.
Life is meant to be lived.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, life is meant to be lived. It's meant to be experienced. Our brains are wired for connection, not for productivity. So
Not my fucking brain. My fucking brain's...
Yeah, Price. But why do you think that you need to be productive all of the time?
This is not my therapy session.
It is now.
We've talked about my incessant need to be like unstoppably productive before, because if I'm not productive, then who's gonna love me?
It's about connection. Our brains are wired for connection. That's the thing that we're looking for.
Y'all, we didn't set this up. She just fucking brought that back on me. This is why we started a podcast, because you're always doing this shit to me. I'm like, breakthrough. Breakthrough. Are you really allowed to like make me go through some emotional like awakening while we're recording? Is that allowed?
We won't get all the way into this.
I want people to love me. That's why. Okay, you take the rest of this episode. I'm gonna just do a little introspection.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Is introspection the right word?
Yeah.
Every fucking episode, I'm like, is that a word?
It's really funny how when you start saying words into a microphone, suddenly the English language, like, I don't know. Is that a word? I'm not sure.
Productivity is a lie. That's what you said. That's a strong thing to say.
Yeah.
And you stand by it.
I stand by it. No, clients come in, the thing about a conversation around productivity is that it is English words. It's part of part of why we're doing this episode, part of why we're talking about this today is it's part of your job is about helping like organizations on a massive level be able to effectively and efficiently get the work done. And you are an extremely effective and efficient person. I think about like every job you've had, you've optimized their processes.
Think about it like this. I pee in the shower. You can't get more productive than that.
Where did that heart come from, Bryce?
Yeah, it was a yellow heart.
Oh, no.
No,
okay.
I'm just kidding. But imagine like washing your hair and taking a piss at the same time. You can't.
Yeah, you're always thinking about how to be productive. But the first thing that I have to challenge with clients is like, why? Why do you think your life needs to look a certain way? What does it mean to you to be productive? There are certainly things that clients are struggling with that they do need to get done. If they live in a house by themselves at some point, that house needs to be, just for like health and safety reasons, needs to be straightened and tidied. There are certain things that need to be kept up with. There are things that have to happen in our life. But a lot of people come in with way more expectation than what actually needs to be done in their life. And it's not about like, you shouldn't be doing things. It's not about there isn't a certain like joy in having, man, I love like laying down. Hello, Alice, the cat, laying down after a busy day. And when you and I are like reflecting on our day and we're like, we got so much done. What a great day. I think that one of my favorite things to do with clients is to get really creative about how we tackle the things that they have to be able to get done.
I go back to Navy SEALs when I think about the extreme of this sort of mindset. Because for folks like me who like really idolized this group of like people growing up, I was going to be a Navy SEAL, and I think a lot of folks say that. And then,
I don't know if I really knew that about you.
Yeah, for like when I was like 13 to 15, nice. I was like very set on doing like special forces because that's the pinnacle of like a man's man, right? Uh-huh. That's tough, that's grit, that's the ability to overcome. And they go through training that's so intense, and there's a lot of sleep deprivation involved because they're trying to put these folks under extreme duress. Yeah. To mimic the effects of combat, where these guys are out for weeks in the jungle or something, and and enduring like unbelievable circumstances. And I think that my perspective on that has shifted a bit because although I respect the hell out of those people, normal civilians who aren't going to be encountering that sort of tough scenario don't need to prove that they're so if you're into that and that's your thing, like by all means, like be fucking incredible. Tough. There are like influencers like Dave Goggins who like run 400 miles a day, and they're all about like just making life as tough as they can for themselves. And if that's your thing, great, but you've got to understand that a lot of these people are replicating these situations so that they can prepare themselves for an unbelievably difficult event. Yeah. Whereas like on the other side, rest and relaxation is an important part of like being alive and an important part of like a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. Is being able to enjoy yourself. And
being prepared for such extreme situations, which is just like incredible what's done. But a lot of times they struggle to return back to like normal life, and the way to like plug into daily living isn't about putting yourself in such like extreme, pushing your body to the edge of like what it can do every day. You'll burn out. You won't be able to do that. And neurodivergent folks in particular deal with burnout in a really extreme way. Sometimes. I was just talking with somebody today about how bad we are at listening to our bodies sometimes, that as a neurodivergent person, especially, so I'm autistic, I'm speaking with an autistic person, and we were talking about how...
You're autistic?
Yeah. And we were talking about how we our whole lives we've been taught to like be uncomfortable, that like this is too loud, this is uncomfortable, I'm having whatever, my nervous system is overwhelmed, and being told like that's normal, everybody's experiencing that, go back to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so we're used to just like, oh, I'm always uncomfortable, I've always got something going on that I'm just like masking and shoving down. And then you get to this point where you can extremely burn yourself out in a job or in a living situation or whatever, where you're just go and the signs that your body gives you that it's tired are the same things you've been taught not to listen to.
What I'm taking from this is that you're saying that being autistic is a lot like being a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point that I was making.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll let the SEALs fans know that you said that, and I'm sure they'll be crazy about it.
Oh my God. And ADHD folks deal with burnout in that an ADHD brain has a hard time with the breaks. When you get really interested in something, really involved in something, or just like committed to a task, sometimes you can go and not know when to stop, or not stop until it's become an issue, something has happened.
I'm working with somebody in my job now who's also ADHD, and we get like really into the stuff,
Yeah.
and it's been a joy to like work with, like synchronize with somebody in that way. Yeah. I don't. She's claimed that she has ADHD. I don't think that there's been like I'm not trying to make it what it's not, but yeah, we definitely like ADHD plug in on stuff, and it's been cool. It's been really cool. Okay, so let's talk about navigating productivity for like a daily task. Doing the dishes as an example. I think that, I mean, you're the one who we were pre-planning this episode a bit, and you're the one who brought dishes up because you have clients who specifically struggle.
So many clients who struggle with dishes.
Specifically dishes. What do you tell those clients? Who are like fully functioning adults, who have real jobs, who have real careers, who like, they're out here doing it.
Yeah.
But they struggle with getting the dishes done.
I was just trying to be like, it depends. But in general, in that situation, somebody's out there like living their life, they have a career, they're doing everything, and they're still struggling with dishes. Like, that's not where your value lies. That it's okay to be struggling
they're
with
feeling
dishes.
deep shame about this.
Yeah. They're like, look, I have a job and a house or an apartment, and I have a relationship, and I have all these things, but like I can't get the dishes done. They've been sitting in the sink for like 2 weeks, and I can't. I'm like I'm eating to-go out of to-go containers because I just can't touch the dishes in the sink.
First of all, have you guys never heard of a fucking dishwasher before? I'm kidding. No, the second thing is that it's crazy that when they list all of the reasons why they should be able to do the dishes, those are all things that like are taking up their life. I'm working. I have a relationship. I have hobbies.
That's such a good point.
I should be able to do the dishes. Like, no, you're listing all the things that are keeping you from getting to the dishes in the first place,
That is
right?
so true. Like, those things are tiring you out, and you're getting home, and the last thing you want to do is stand and now tackle 2 weeks or whatever worth of dishes.
I think that you could lock me into a little like nuclear bunker for a year. Padded walls, absolutely nothing in there. Nothing to do. There's nothing. I'm fed like a little meal through a little hole in the wall every day. And a year later, you'll be like, Price, we'll let you out into the fresh air, but you have to wash some dishes. And I'll be like, nah. Keep me in here. Fuck that.
Okay, mister, have you heard of a dishwasher? Why are dishes so tough for you?
Why are dishes tough for me? Because they're your job. So every time I find myself doing dishes, I really resent it. We divide up labor. I do stuff around the house. You do dishes. Thank you.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I feel like extra exhausted when I'm cooking, because cooking is already such a task for me, and then it's something that we've decided that you do, so when I have to do it, it's like an extreme part of my day.
Well, that's good advice for people who are struggling with household chores. And we've talked about this like on relationship episodes.
Yeah.
It's like have your partner and you divide, or your roommate or whoever's sharing the space with you, divide up tasks based on like ability and interest, you know?
Yeah, not by gender. Divide out tasks by ability and interest, and the things that, because to me, dishes are almost nothing to do. Now, I will notice that changes day to day. And that's an important thing about these sorts of tasks. Like you said, well, you just listed all the things that keep you from being able to do this. And that's true. Like, if you're really struggling because your work tires you out, well, like, coming home and doing dishes right away isn't probably going to happen. That's not going to work.
I think there's a couple of different ways you could slice it. You could focus on doing the dishes as they happen. I cook, I do the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the dishes get done every day. Or you could, and this is probably more me, you could do let the dishes pile up a bit and then fill up half the sink with hot water and soap and put on some music, light some candles, make a night of it. Treat yourself to some dishwashing. I actually don't hate washing dishes in that context. But if I'm like trying to get to something, trying to do something else, then it's like pulling teeth out. But
that's that like ADHD filter. Is it urgent? Where you'll like wash dishes if you're about to cook something, but not if like it's between that and video games. You're gonna go do the fun, interesting, challenging thing.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of things that I talk people through, and this is again kind of a big it depends situations. A lot of people struggle with dishes because of the sensory issues. So for autistic folks, that's a big part of what we're dealing with. And some things that can be helpful is using like really warm water. I find really warm water like particularly soothing to get to do dishes with. Another thing is making sure your sink is actually like clean, so you have a clean place to be doing that. Because I was reading recently about somebody like they hadn't cleaned out their drain in a while, and it was just like gross being over there, and the smell was giving them a hard time. And once they did that, they were like, oh, the dishes aren't actually so bad. I was having a lot of overwhelm due to kind of this related but separate
or if
issue.
the counter is like cluttered where you would be putting dishes to dry, like clean out prepare the space.
Yeah, prepare a space. So two more thoughts. One is, if it's a sensory issue like wearing gloves, making sure you have a clean space to do it, playing some music or doing something that can be helpful.
It's a great time to make a phone call.
It's a great time to make a phone call, although it can kind of be hard to hear. I really like to listen to music or listen to something if I have like a lot of dishes to do.
Yeah.
A couple other things, and these don't just apply to autism. This is for a variety of reasons. You might not be able to do the dishes. I had a client where our agreement was when she got home, it was as soon as she sat down, then she didn't want to get up and do something else. So when she got home, she set like a timer, and for whatever amount of time, like 15, 20 minutes, she'd just do a couple of tasks. Like would go straight into, I'm already in work mode, I'm already ready to go. And she'd say that she got home and she was able to do it. So she'd like do the dishes and she'd do something else. And she'd like pick up the stuff that she'd left out from the night before. And then she could sit down and her evening was done. And when she got to rest, she really got to rest.
Oh, because I know the resting when you know that there's other stuff to be done, you're not really able to relax.
Yeah, you're spending the whole time like, I should have been doing this thing, and you don't get to enjoy either time.
Yeah.
It's not fun doing the tasks when you finally get up to do them. It's not fun sitting there. And so it's like, you don't have to do everything in your house, because then she'd get into a task and she'd do it for too long. So it's like set a timer or set a number of things you're going to do and just do those things.
And it's the little bit a day that kind of keeps you ahead of it, right? Like being able to spend a little time on these sorts of things every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that can be really helpful just for chores around the house, it can be something that a lot of people struggle with, is you get on the one task and then you're like, oh, I don't have a clean place to put the dishes, so I need to put these things away. And then you put those things away and you're like, oh, this doesn't go in the kitchen, this goes out in the living room. So then you walk into the living room and then you're like, oh, the couch is messy, I need to straighten the pillows and do the blankets. Oh, the blankets smell, I need to go do a load of laundry. And then you're getting laundry and you're like 800 tasks in and the dishes still haven't been done, but actually nothing has been done.
Right.
So two really good bits of advice that I've heard recently or talked to clients about. One is you don't leave the room. Even if you need to like put a sign next to the entry to the room to remind yourself like you're staying in this room. And the other thing is to have baskets for different rooms or just a box or whatever, and to set that out, and anything that doesn't belong in that room, you just put in the box. So every time you go to leave the room, you're like, nope, goes in the box, and I'll deal with that later. That's either a different task for a different day, or if you're able to dedicate the whole day, a different task for a different room. But being able to help yourself stay focused. And it's especially important for an ADHD brain to practice staying on task, because it helps to train your brain to be able to do that better.
The most effective piece of advice that I would give as a project manager for this of thing is actually could be quite hard to do, but I think it's so effective to be able to do this, is to set aside time to actually take an inventory of what needs to be done around your house. Make a list of the things, the deep cleaning stuff and then the surface level stuff. And that can be quite overwhelming if you've been ignoring for a long time. But like you've talked about in previous episodes, when you're just talking about like healing, you're sitting in a dark room. And you got to start by like turning the light on and taking an inventory of the things that are causing you pain. You've got to literally take an inventory of the things that are stressing you out in your life. And when you start putting them on paper, then even if it looks like a long list, you're able to start taking steps to break that out into smaller, like manageable pieces of work. And that's in project management called like a work breakdown structure.
Okay.
Where you take a seemingly overwhelming, too big to wrap your head around, like task or series of tasks, and you're breaking that out into like, here's what I can actually manage. And then you're thinking, how long would it actually take me to sweep the floors in the entire house? And then when you're really cooking with peanut oil, you are like thinking, okay, here are the things that need to be done monthly around the house. Here are the things that need to be done weekly around the house. And here are the things that need to be done every day. Yeah. Shouts out to my mom, who had chore lists for us growing up that were daily. I had daily chores, I had weekly chores, and I had monthly chores growing up. It was hell.
Yeah, but she was really able to keep up with like an intensive deep cleaning of her home without having too much to do at any given time.
It never felt like too much. So like every Tuesday I swept the entire house growing up. And then like if you think like Wednesday we vacuumed, and on Thursday I wiped down all the windows, and like imagine how clean that house is. Right. But I never did like an hour's worth of or more worth of work on my daily and weekly chores every day. Yeah. And that house stayed clean because me and my sister both, like, because of my mom's oversight, had that approach.
Yeah. And that's another good. So I think that if you have the capacity to do that, that's an amazing breakdown, especially like just having a routine around it.
But that's to get to that, which to me is like penultimate
rigor
and
the
routine,
peak of
right?
What you can do.
Yeah, to get to that, you've got to know what the tasks are that need to be done. You've got to have an understanding of, and so it starts by just like taking an inventory of what needs to happen.
And that's that thing that can happen where when you've been putting stuff off because, executive dysfunction or burnout or whatever, you stop looking at it. You stop being able to like take a good hard look at what needs to be done because it's really overwhelming. Another thing that's helpful for like a big clean like that is involving a friend, and the two of you, like, it's hard to invite somebody into your mess and to like really do that.
Yeah.
But like, again, we're wired for connection. We're built for that. That's a thing we're really good at, and people tend to enjoy like especially so much easier. It's so much easier to clean somebody else's space than to clean your own. But to get to have like a support, somebody who's keeping you on task and focused, that can be a big deal to helping somebody overcome that first major hurdle to getting it done, and then make a list.
And that's a treat yourself scenario. Order pizza, play
Yeah,
music, have
have
a
it
great
be nice.
time, take an edible. Like,
Yeah, make a day of it.
yeah.
That breaking stuff down into its different components, that's another important thing with something like doing the dishes, is that just because you have 2 weeks of dishes in the sink doesn't mean you have to get 100% of them done all at the same time. So you might just go, sometimes when I only have a little bit of time and I'm feeling stressed, I'll go, I'm just going to make sure all of the silverware is pulled out of the sink and put in the dishwasher. And then in the process of doing that, I've kind of stacked and organized things. So then the next time I come back, it doesn't look like as much to do.
And you have a better idea of what's in there waiting for you in the
I
first
have a
place.
better idea of what horrible sink monster is coming to get me next.
Yeah. I think that the advice that I would be taking from this, or I would want people to take from this, is like, get curious about the work that's in front of you. Like, don't be afraid of it, and really be flexible with how you approach that work. Like, make it work for your own brain.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to. Maybe it's 10 minutes a day. You're working on that pile of dishes, and but don't.
Something else, you were talking about the dishwasher. Other advice I've heard somebody given by a therapist is like, run the dishwasher as many times as you need to. Like, if you can't bear to pre-scrub things because you don't have the mental capacity to do it at the moment, like, put it in there and run it. And if you pull it out and it still run it again. Your dishes are done then. Like, then everything's taken care of. You can be creative with it. You can get curious about it and think about, is there a way that could make this feel bearable for me to do?
Oh, man. And you deserve to live in a clean and organized environment.
Yeah.
There is enough stress in this world as it is that there are things that are around you that are within your control that don't need to be causing you stress.
Not to mention the time that we spend caring for something makes that thing feel like home to us. The time that we spend like investing in something, and now I think we talked about this for a couple weeks in a row, but we were talking about relationships, but the time you spend investing in your home makes it feel like your space.
Yeah.
And also create a space that works for you. Once again, like, set up your life to fit you. Being productive doesn't mean that you have to fit into this particular mold. You can set up a life that's happy for you to live in, that works for you, that meets your needs.
Let's move on and tackle infrequent but regular tasks.
Okay.
So not like just the immediate home life or sort of thing, but the example we were tossing around that I really like, because I think most of us deal with this, is having to go change your oil in your car. There are so many. It speaks to me because I've literally been in a situation where I needed to go change my oil and it just wasn't happening, and I really wasn't sure why it wasn't happening, but it just wasn't happening. And then by the time you get there, your worst fear is confirmed. They're like, "Wow, it's been a really long time since you've changed your oil," and you're like, "Shut the fuck up! I don't.
I don't need to hear about it. I know. No one is more aware than I.
Ever since that fucking light came on, man, it's the only thing I can fucking think about, and I've been paralyzed with fear."
Okay, my favorite thing. Comes up in the self-care conversation.
Yeah.
In a lot of like textbooks or self-help books about self-care, it's like, when the light in your car comes on, you like go get it checked out. That's when you go take care of that. And every time I'm like, oh God, this self-care thing is going to go really, really
I'll be like on a road trip and my check engine light will come on. I'll be like, the next exit. No, baby, we're Bon Jovi living on a prayer. Fucking praying to God that we'll get to wherever we're going. And then some, and then the next trip, and the next trip, and the next trip.
No, it's going to be on long enough that the next time I get in the car after getting the oil change, I'm like, isn't there usually another thing up here? And I'm like, oh yeah, it was the check engine light.
Here's the problem for me is that I need the ideal mechanic. What am I trying to say? The ideal mechanic or environment for me would be, hey pal, we're glad you made it. Come on in.
We're proud of you for coming.
Take a load off. Why don't you have a seat? We'll get you a Capri Sun.
It's going to be okay.
We're glad you're here. We've got a therapy dog for you. Just breathe, pal.
I want to go to this mechanic shop for sure. That's exactly...
It's a harrowing experience for me, you know?
People forget when they do the same job all of the time that most of our jobs are things that are a big deal for other people to interact with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're like a cashier at the grocery store, there are so many people with like social anxiety where that's the one thing that they have to do every week. They have to go like interact with a cashier. Like you should just know that even if you're doing a job that feels somewhat mundane, you're like, I'm a mechanic. What is that? People are afraid to come see you.
Right.
It is scary. And you should treat people like that. You should treat them with so much kindness.
What is it that holds us back from attending to these things as they come up?
I think that there are, it depends, a lot of different things. Maybe it's easier for me to get into some of the tips that I can think of and we can talk about how
Sure.
that addresses a certain need. One is that you're never going to do it spur of the moment. It's going to be difficult for you to be like, you know what would be fun right now? I already had to go to the grocery store. Perhaps I will also go get my oil changed.
I'm sitting here just scrolling through TikTok, checking out I Married Your Therapist excellently edited shorts.
Yeah.
Thinking, you know what would be more fun than this?
If I could go get my car right now and get the oil changed.
Yeah.
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 Maybe that's happening
Great
for you.
first date idea.
It's a great first date idea. It's a good hangout with friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
if
just not gonna happen.
If you notice that it's just not happening. Now, for some people, they will drive past and be like, oh, time to get it checked. Like, and they'll go do that. They're not listening to this podcast. They're not facing this issue.
They're getting their oil changed. They're busy. We're proud of them. We're happy for them.
We're happy for them. Maybe somebody listening is like in a relationship with one of those people, and that's great. Maybe they can change everybody's oil.
I think you have to be a dad to be that kind of person.
Okay, so the biggest things here are, one thing you can do to help is to schedule it. Like, make a plan ahead of time. Make a plan that fits your schedule. Like, if for you would like block something like that off on your calendar. I would add it to my calendar. In fact, I did last week go get my oil changed to my calendar.
Right.
It's why this came up, because it wasn't happening. And I needed like a set aside time. I needed that little reminder to pop up and be like, hey, all you have to do this morning is to go get this thing done. So set aside time, make it a plan, tell somebody you're going to do it.
Ooh.
So you have somebody to check in with, a little bit of encouragement. Something else that can be a big task for
Tell
folks.
us you're going to do it. Email
Yeah.
imarriedyourtherapist@gmail.com. We'll be so proud of you.
We'll be so proud of you. If you want the most encouragement about getting your oil changed and a therapy dog, email us about it.
Yeah, there it is.
Something else can be not knowing what to expect around a task like that. Maybe it's your first time going to do it by yourself, or every time it just feels like, I pull in and I never know what information to give them. I never know what to tell them. So
Are they going to take advantage of me? Are they going to try to
Yeah.
upsell me? Can I
Yeah.
trust them? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So this is where, and I think that you can maybe talk us more through planning, but this is where planning can be really helpful. But a couple of things that's going to include is knowing ahead of time where you're going, setting aside the time when to go, knowing where to go, knowing that you can call ahead. I know for some people it's their nightmare to talk on the phone and to have to do that. But let me tell you, you would not believe the places that you can call ahead and ask them about the process.
Yeah.
I recently called like the DMV for somebody and was like, hey, I have somebody who's going to call to pay a fine. Can you tell me every step of the fine paying process and what that will look like for them? And we talked through every step together. I forget her name. I think it was like Deborah. She was super sweet. And she was like, oh, honey, I'd love to walk you through this. And we like talked through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote down each step. you can call and ask. That's what these people do all day long, is they do this job. And you can ask them about what to expect when you get there.
And if calling's not going to happen, you can Google and get a lot of information about it.
Get a lot of information. A lot of like what to expect articles written.
Yeah, specific to the oil change thing, they're always like, do you want filtered, unfiltered? Do you want non-GMO or gluten-free oil? And I'm always like, I don't fucking remember which oil I want.
Yeah.
And they're like looking at me like, are you a red wine guy or a white wine guy? I'm like, I'm not drinking the oil, man. You put it in the car and I pay you and then I drive off, and that's the end of my interaction with the oil in my car. Like until that light comes back on, I don't think about it. In fact, shouts out to the change oil light.
Yeah.
In your dashboard, because if that wasn't there, I would drive every car into the ground. Every car into the ground.
I don't think I go by the sticker. I go by the sticker that they give me when I get my oil changed, and I look at my mileage.
I look at the sticker too. Yeah. If the lights come on, you're kind of like, that's kind of fucked.
It might be too late for you.
Yeah, you might as well just like pull over and just leave the car and walk home.
Abandon the car.
Yeah. No, but like figuring out those sorts of salient details and knowing the answer to those things, man, that would empower me to feel so much better about going and doing this task that feels so overwhelming. Because those are the things that are overwhelming, right? You're dissecting what is it about this task that is overwhelming to me? Why isn't it happening? Mm-hmm. These are the things that are holding you back. Feel free to like get in there and like get help, ask for help from people, and get the information you need to feel good about it. You know? Yeah.
As, well, I was going to say as an affirming therapist, as a therapist who works with like neurodivergent folks.
Imagine like your counter, like as an unaffirming therapist. Fuck you.
I would never. Okay, my mind went a lot of places. I love talking through processes with people. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy to do that during a session. I know that a lot of times we associate therapy with like, and how do you feel about that? But this is a big factor in people's lives. Yeah. And I would encourage you to tell the people who are already supports in your life, whether it's your therapist or friends who support you, like ask your friend group, like, who knows about the steps for getting your oil changed? I have a question. Yeah. Like, help each other out. We're all having to do these things, and they suck and they're tricky, and the state inspection every year for your car and getting that updated.
Well, maybe one of your friends is like, I can't fucking stand getting my oil changed either, and they're in the same boat, and then you guys could like figure it out together.
Yeah, drive on down together.
I mean, you made the calls to the DMV on behalf of a client, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not just asking, so how do you feel about that? You're like, oh, you're struggling to get to the DMV because you don't know what to expect? Like, I'll take care of that shit for you. Yeah. So you called and you spoke to Deborah and you unpacked that. Yeah. That's next level therapy shit, y'all. And then you told your client about it and they're like, oh, check, got it. That makes sense. I am now no longer like terrified of having to go to the DMV for this thing because I know what to expect.
Exactly. And it was 2 parts. It was writing out the steps. And so this might be what you need for these big, infrequent occurrences, is writing out the steps and what to expect. So as I was helping with this, and think about requesting this sort of help from friends or family or whoever, is saying, what are the, like, so I call and I have to press 3 and I have to go through this option and do this thing. What's the thing going to tell me when I get there? What are the options going to be? Yeah, what's the prompt going to remind me about? And that was a big help to her, and is often a big help in these things, is it's not just like step by step by step, but also like the prompt was reminding like about the fine or whatever. And that felt very scary. It was very overwhelming to hear about that. I was like, hey, keep in mind, you're going to hear about this thing. It's all information you already know. You don't even have to listen. Hit number 3 or whatever.
Yeah. I envision a listener thinking like, do you really need to call ahead to figure out what your, the oil change process is like? Really? Like, really? That's where you're at? I don't know. You're the one who can't get your oil changed.
I think that this exists for for everything.
And in different things. Maybe oil change is like easy for you, but I think most of us have stuff like this, that we've got a growing pile in the corner of our desk that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, filled with shit, and we just don't even want to like think about what's in there. You know, like that is what I'm talking about. Like this thing that is just like growing in our mind as a source of anxiety that we don't want to tackle, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be having to go somewhere new. It could be the process for like applying for a new job or polishing up your resume. It might be, going out to a social gathering for the first time. Like all of that stuff is scary.
Or you really want to go camping, but you don't know how. You don't really, that's not something you've done. So you don't really know, but you really want to try, Yep. Yeah. Break it down into its component parts. Figure it out.
Yep. Break it down into its steps, and as much as you can figure out what to expect with each of those things.
And if you're beating yourself up, like, why am I the only one who doesn't get this? First of all, you're never alone in whatever the thing is that you're struggling with. The reason it feels like you're alone is because people struggle with different things,
I'm so sorry.
Oh, geez.
I struggle with breathing.
Break it down into its component parts. Inhale. Exhale.
Okay.
I almost said outhale. Just a little self-report there.
Whatever works. People don't talk about this stuff because they're embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, does somebody really need help getting their oil changed? Like, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's like fine with that, there's something else that they struggle with. And we don't talk about it because it feels like everybody goes and gets their oil changed. It must be that everybody out on the road with a car is regularly going and getting their oil changed, and I'm the only one who's really nervous to go into the shop and I don't know what to expect. No, you're not talking about it because you're embarrassed about it. Other people aren't talking about it because they're embarrassed about it.
Can we shout out the biggest stressor that people shelve and don't want to think about?
Sure, I don't know what it is.
The biggest one. Money.
Oh, yeah.
Credit card debt. Buying stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whew, that's a whole
Y'all think that you're on your own with that, but you're not. We're all out here struggling with financial issues. That's one of the biggest things that somebody would come to therapy with. One of the most consistent things. Oh,
yeah. Consistently, people. And they're in all different, like...
stages of life,
different types of careers, or whatever they're doing. Everybody has big questions about that. I would really like to be able to address some of those things sometimes, but it's the stuff that we just
we're already talking about tackling that in a future episode.
It's just the stuff that we we don't want to look at. Like, it gets so big and scary in our brains.
Yep.
And anxiety has this way of like feeding itself, where every time you don't do the thing, not doing the thing is reaffirmed as like the safest option. So you don't get your oil changed, you don't get it changed, the light comes on, that adds a lot of anxiety, but you keep not doing it, and your brain is like, what keeps me safe is just not thinking about this.
Yeah.
What's helping about money is such a big stress. What's helping to keep me safe is just that I don't look too closely at it. I just like spend, and usually the money is there when I need it, and sometimes it's not, and then I have to, pull some sort of magic trick, but after that, like, things go back, and I just don't want to look at it.
I might have mentioned this in a previous episode, but I just read a book where somebody was injured severely in their arm, and then it got infected. It was in the like 1850s, and they didn't even want to look at it. They weren't in a place where they could receive meaningful medical attention, and they were like, don't let me see it. I don't even want to see it. And the wound festered, and that person died from the infection.
From the infection, not from the injury itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that is what, like, we really don't think about infection a lot because of antibiotics, shouts out, but the reality is that a lot of these issues are a lot like an infection. They fester, they grow. Ignoring it is not the solution. But just like that guy in the book, he didn't want to look at it because he didn't want to confront or face his real fear. But the reality is that when you look at this stuff, when you take an inventory of the things around your house that need to be done, or you actually look like full on to the eye of fucking Sauron of your finances, like, That's the first step.
Yep.
That's the first step to actually getting control of the situation and turning it into something that is manageable, that you can create a plan for. How many people do we speak with who have what they feel like is crippling student debt, realizing that when they talk to us, realize, oh, it's not as bad as I thought, and I can come up with a sustainable plan to address this over time. Ignoring it is not the solution.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're not alone in it. And also like looking at head on with a kind, like second party who's going to be able to help encourage you and help figure it out. The other thing is like, we are meant to be surrounded by generations of people. We're meant to be like in an intergenerational community.
Yeah.
And I just think about how many early things we never would have figured out to do, or we would have struggled through way more if it weren't for the people about a decade older than us who were like in our lives, who were just a few steps down the road, and they were like, oh, that's no big deal for me now. Yeah. They had other things they were probably facing. Yeah. But at that time, the things that we were struggling with, they had struggled with a few years before, and they were able to help us. And think about, as you're growing your community, not just growing a community of peers. They don't have to be people who you hang out with every weekend. Think about growing an intergenerational community,
yes.
A community of folks who are a few steps down the road from you, who know how to do it. It is so easy. We have so many young people in our life. Wow. Yeah, but we have so many people who are about a decade younger than us. And it is such a joy to get to be like, oh my gosh, a couple years ago, I had no idea how to do that either. Let me show you.
Yeah.
It is not a big ask. It is so easy. And I think with this intermittent stuff, not the daily task stuff, I mean, that's something you could get help with as well. Probably a managing sort of perspective.
Right, yeah.
But when it comes to some of this stuff, ask somebody a few years older than you, a few steps down the road. How do you do this thing? A lot of the times, again, our brains are wired for connection, and that's one of the ways that we really connect as a community, is these like handling regular tasks that come up.
Yeah, we act like you graduate high school or college, or you turn 18 or 22 or whatever that hallmark is, and all of a sudden you're supposed to have everything like on lock.
Yeah.
But that's not how life works. That's such a lie. Like you develop and grow over time with the support of people who care about you, that are coming with multiple perspectives, especially an intergenerational one, to your point.
Yep.
And how many people have we really benefited from greatly throughout our lives? People who were able to come alongside and say, yeah, this is how you do that. This is how you pay down credit card debt. This is how you start a savings account. Like this is how you do those things. And it's like, we've got a lot figured out in our personal lives. I mean, there's plenty of stuff in disarray, like the piss heart on the bathroom floor. But it's not piss. I just have to say that it's not piss. We got a lot figured out in our personal lives, though. That aside, the piss aside, we've got a lot figured out. Thanks to other wiser people who were able to let us learn from their mistakes or learn from their success.
Oh yeah, no, people who are 10 years down the road, and then also friends who were even further down the road who were able to like look back over a range of like different experiences and help us through. Like, here's how this is going to impact you down the road. And that was so helpful. This is, once again, when it comes to being productive, like figuring out a way to make things work for you. And to know that the reason I say like productivity is a lie, it's because being completely independent is a lie. Being like a fully functioning independent human who never has to rely on anybody else, that's a lie. We're not meant to do that.
It's miserable.
It's miserable.
Or it breeds misery, I would say.
It's essentially impossible.
Yeah.
And it's miserable. And it's a lie that I think, especially in like Western culture, we are all like, we really overvalue independence. And so not only do a lot of folks come in like, I can't get stuff done, but they also feel guilty about needing to reach out and ask for help, because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to just figure it out. Absolutely not. Yeah. You are meant to ask other people. You are meant to be in relationship with other people who are helping you through this huge, vast array of like challenges we all faced over the course of our life.
And when you look at the people who you are jealous of, who have been successful, you know, consider all the people who are helping them, who have helped them get there.
That's so true.
I think about us when we up and moved to Chicago from Florida, suddenly in our early 20s. If it hadn't been for the dear friends that we made in Chicago who were older than us and were so helpful to us in so many ways, I'm not sure what that situation would have looked like. We might have come back home with our hat in our hands, but we were able to find success out there because we found community with people who are older than us and better able to speak to some of the issues we were dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to hear that perspective down the road. I think that really made that situation possible for us.
Yeah, totally.
And then the story is, here's the tricky part, because we don't talk, not you and I don't talk about that, but people don't talk about that. The story is, wow, Price and Ash, when they were in their early 20s, moved to Chicago all on their own, and they made it happen.
That's the point I was making. Thanks for bringing us back to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the outside looking in, it looks like we went to Chicago and crushed it.
Yep.
And we did, thanks to a lot of people who were helping us.
We got to Chicago and we met this like lovely old couple who like rented their apartment to us. And we met, and we like met our neighbors. And then we met people when we were out walking our dog. And then we met people who had lived there for a long time and who knew the area. And we met people who knew about how to like do the things in life we didn't know how to do. And it was like this whole community of people who helped us make it in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a few minutes left. You were making some really interesting points earlier when you were talking about some of the productivity apps that have been brought to your attention by your clients lately. And we just have a few, like 10 minutes left. Talk to me about your opinion on this like endless pursuit for efficiency and productivity in our lives.
Yeah.
And like some of your thoughts on that.
Once again, I think that's a lie. Like rest is productive.
And to clarify, the background that you have walking into this that the listener may not have is that these apps are all about maximizing your efficiency.
Yeah. Okay. So these apps are, you're like putting in, they're kind of meant for work stuff, but you're putting in your scheduled stuff, and it's supposed to use a lot of them like AI to generate an ideal schedule, and you'll get in every little bit of time will be, you know, oh, here you have a 15-minute gap. Okay, we're putting in this 15-minute activity. We're doing this thing. And then they can't do it. But then they feel bad because the hard part, quote unquote, was taken care of.
Yeah.
It was all scheduled out. All they needed to do was follow the plan. And it's just another added layer of like pressure to our lives that you have to do all things and be all things. So I think that
the hustle never stops, baby.
So the biggest thing is baby steps. So to zoom out a little bit, like in the productivity conversation, clients will be like, okay, so I can do this daily task, or I got my oil changed, or I did whatever, but I have 100 things I have to do. I have to manage so many things in my life. And that's when an app like that feels really beneficial. Like
right.
I have so many things to organize, I need help. And maybe you do need help figuring out how to do things when. That might be a benefit to you. But the biggest thing here is taking baby steps. And I have to remind clients that like, if you're noticing that there's a lot of stuff that you need to do, like that's the first step. Now we're taking account, just like you were talking about earlier, of all the things that need to be done. But you're not going to do all of these things at once. So
right.
We're going to start building some routine around some of these daily tasks. And then when you have that freed up, it's not going to be as hard to go get your oil changed, because you're not like putting off the dishes you haven't done for 2 weeks to go do it. Now your dishes pretty routinely get done, and we figured out that bit. And now, you're thinking about ways to build community, and you can name the friends who help you do things.
Yeah.
And there was never a moment, I think, at any point in our life as we figured out things where it's like, oh, I just figured that out. Okay, I did this thing, I figured that out. I did this thing and figured it out. To me, it's always in retrospect. It's you and I look back and we're like, man, remember a year ago when we couldn't do that?
Mm-hmm.
And now we do it every day. Or
yeah.
now we do it easily.
For those of you who don't know, I have a Lean Six Sigma black belt.
Ooh.
And if you know what that means, you're a nerd. It has nothing to do with martial arts. It's a designation for a process engineering and continuous improvement. It's for my job. Don't worry about it. I started my career in the manufacturing space. Big conversation was maximizing profitability for machines that were being used on the plant floor. Mm-hmm. So we talked about, the goal is to get to 100% utilization. I'm making money when the machine is running, right? So I want the machine to be running at all times.
Right. That's what 100% utilization means, is that it's being used. Yeah. It's in use all the time.
My friend, you are not a machine on a factory floor. The end goal for your life should not be 100% utilization.
Yep.
You should be able to rest and relax and enjoy the peace that you have earned because you have dedicated 15 minutes to that dish pile today.
Yeah.
The burden on your shoulders is yours. You have laid it upon yourself that you're not able to get to this thing because you're just not good enough. You are not alone. We are all struggling in our own ways with this. The best thing that you can do is change your perspective and be kinder to yourself and chip away at it in a way that makes sense to you. Because, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And the journey of cleaning 1,000 plates starts with cleaning one. And it gets easier to knock out the entire pile of dishes when you start every day just cleaning a dish, right? That's the thing, is like you get better. It gets easier to establish these habits if you start small.
Yeah.
How many times have I wanted to okay, I'm doing a new diet. Like I'm eradicating like these food groups and stuff. And like 2 days in, I'm like, fuck, I hated this,
But it's been easy as you've done it as part of a process.
Yeah.
That it's been like, I'm really enjoying, when you get really into like bell peppers dipped in something, and then you're like adding that in to your diet, and now you're replacing something else with like some beautiful, delicious peppers.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm working out. What really helps to fuel me is having more like lean protein.
Yeah.
And so you're doing more of that, and it's easier as you go.
That's the thing, is within the context of a continuous improvement, which was my like field of study and stuff, that it's about continuously improving, not getting it perfect right now and in perpetuity.
I hate the idea of continuous improvement, that like things always have to be, I don't know, I think of social media, and like you always have to be getting more followers, or you always have to be selling more of this product, or you always have to be doing, and I don't like that. But at one point you were explaining continuous improvement to me, and you were like, something else that falls under continuous improvement is like consistency. It's like just being able to continue doing the thing that you set out to do. And that to me is like a lot more manageable. Like that's what you're going through in your life, is like you're just looking to like build routines that are sustainable, that support the things you want to do.
Much more aligned to what I mean when I say continuously improve. It's continuously taking steps towards the goals that you have for yourself, the things that you want to do that will bring you joy. It's not about getting there today. It's about stepping there, a little bit every day.
Yep. Can I tell you the funniest story? I don't know if this will be applicable to everybody, but I was talking to this one really lovely person, and they were struggling with doing the dishes, and they weren't getting done. And it was like a very long period of time. And I was like, what if you just decided you weren't going to do it anymore, but you were going to pay attention to if you ever felt curious about it? And it wasn't throwaway advice. Like I meant it when I said it.
Right.
But it was just like, I don't know if this will get to be helpful. Who feels like curious about doing the dishes? And the next week they were like, I got curious about doing the dishes this week. Like I told myself I didn't have to do it. But by the time like Wednesday rolled around, I was kind of curious about the dishes. I was kind of curious about what it would feel like to just have them done.
What is that smell? Where is that smell coming from? I'm curious. Eating soup out of my hands is not... I'm curious. Is there a better solution? I'm sorry.
But I like the principle... That's so true. But I like the principle of leading with like curiosity or with a gift to yourself.
Giving yourself space.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of my biggest motivators to get the tasks done that I just really struggle with, that are just like, there's no intrinsic internal motivation to do those things, is like, this is something really kind I'm doing for myself. That it, like, for me in half an hour,
Yeah.
this task will be done and I can go do whatever I want. And I can't do it right now. Like, me right now doesn't want to do it. It's not interested. I want to be me in half an hour. But like, for Ash in half an hour, I'm going to do the dishes and straighten up the kitchen.
My mind is like, well, this dish problem seems like future Price's problem.
Well, that's exactly what can happen, right? But like, wouldn't it be nice if future Price could just go play video games because the dishes were done?
Well, remember your own advice right now, because I do want to remind you it's your day to clean the cat litter.
Oh, man.
That's tough news to break.
You want to know
right now.
something?
What?
I'm not like the least bit curious about it.
I just want to forget. Well, let's wrap up there. Anything else that you'd want to mention?
I want to come back to, like, you're a person. You're just one individual person. And you're not a machine. And so your job is not 100% utilization. Your job is to, like, rest and to take care of yourself and to be able to, like, delight in the place that you live. And sometimes delighting in the place that you live in, your surroundings, is like caring for them.
Yeah.
But that it's part of building the life that you want to have. It doesn't make you like a moral person to be better at straightening up. And that a lot of times when we face where that pressure first came from, usually from like our parents or from, you know, our family of origin, about we ought to do these things, we should do these things, we should do them without complaining, whatever it is. And being able to like really feel a lot of compassion for that younger self who felt so much pressure. And then to allow yourself to like get curious about the dishes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am just so grateful that we got to talk about this. I think it's something that, man, I struggle with these issues even very much now, you know, in multiple ways. But I'm glad that we got to talk through this, where if we wanted support with dealing with, like, you know, productivity issues and, you know, the underlying emotional issues that kind of manifest in these productivity issues, how can we reach out? How can we learn more? Talk to me.
You can find us at I Married Your Therapist on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. You can email us, imarriedyourtherapist@gmail.com. You can find me therapy_with_Ash on Instagram.
Nice.
Nice.
I remembered.
You remembered.
I very
I'm proud
rarely
of you.
remember. Okay. Well, Ash, thanks so much for your time.
Price, thank you for your time.
And we will see you next time on I Married Your Therapist. I am so proud of myself.
Yeah?
Yeah, I didn't once mention it's like working out. You've got to start small and you add weight. I was
think
like, I'm not
today
going to talk
I
about
talked about working out and how it changes your diet. We really can't get away from it.
I know. I work out. What can I say?
I'm glad you got to say it.
Thank you.